The first Saturday in June smelt like honeysuckle and boat gas, the way it always did when the water warmed up enough for the kids to come home. Marlene had been up since 5, rolling out dough for cat head biscuits the size of a grown man's fist, humming old Emmylou Harris songs while the lake lapped at the pilings under the house. She had set the long pine table on the screened porch for 14, 3 children, 3 in-law spouses, 8 grandbabies ranging from 22 down to 4. She'd ironed the red and white check tablecloth her own mama had hemmed in 1973. She'd picked blackberries at dawn and baked 2 cobblers that now cooled under tea towels embroidered with tiny sailboats. She'd even dragged the old rope swing out of the shed and re-knotted the manila line just in case any of the older grandkids still remembered how to fly. By 9 o'clock, the coffee was perked, the country ham was sizzling, and Marlene's phone still hadn't made a sound. That wasn't unusual. Her people were late people. By 10:30, the ham was wrapped in foil, and the biscuits were staying warm in the oven. By 11, she turned the burner off under the red-eye gravy and poured herself a second cup of coffee she didn't want. At 11:47, she finally opened the family group chat. Lauren, eldest daughter, 44, real estate agent in Charlotte. "Y'all, we are so sorry. The beach house in St. Thomas fell into our lap last minute. Kids have never seen turquoise water. We'll make it up to you over the 4th, promise. Love you." Travis, only son, 42, contractor, divorced. "Yeah, Mom, sorry. Boys wanted to do something big before Cole heads to Clemson in the fall. We owe you." Jenna, baby of the family, 38, influencer, married to a dentist. "Don't be mad, Mama. Pics incoming. This place is unreal. Next year, we'll do 2 weeks at the lake. Pinky swear." Then the photos started rolling in. Her 8 grandchildren in matching neon swimsuits on a catamaran, her children clinking mimosas at a table literally floating in the ocean, her grandbabies holding lobster tails bigger than their heads, caption after caption, "Blessed, living our best life, family first, just not this weekend." Marlene stood on the porch in her faded Lily Pulitzer dress, the one she'd bought special for this weekend, and felt something inside her chest fold in half, neat as a letter going into an envelope that would never be mailed. She set the phone face down on the table, walked inside, and did 4 things in exact order. 1. She opened the 1792 bourbon Tommy had been saving for the day all the kids finally came home together. 2. She poured 2 fingers into a jelly jar. 3. She drank it like water. 4. She opened the safe in the closet and took out the manila folder marked House. Inside were 2 things that made her 68-year-old heart stop cold. First, the original deed to 7 waterfront acres paid off in 1998. Second, a printed VRBO listing titled McAllister Lake Norman Legacy Estate, Sleeps 18, Private Dock, Rope Swing. The listing had been live for 9 weeks. There were already 35 5-star reviews and bookings through October 2027. The bank account attached to the payout was in Lauren's name only. Marlene sat down on the braided rug and read every single review. "Beautiful family home. The owners are so sweet, they even left us homemade jam. Can't wait to bring the kids back next summer." She stared at the date of the most recent booking, June 12th through 19th, 2026. Her 69th birthday week, already spoken for by a family from Ohio who'd left a $4,000 deposit. She closed the folder, finished the bourbon, and called Callie Ann Mercer. Callie Ann had been sliding her glossy business card under Marlene's storm door for 4 solid years. Marlene had always tossed them in the junk drawer with the takeout menus. Today, she dialed the cell number printed in gold foil. Callie-Ann Mercer, Luxury Lake Properties. How can I make your day fabulous? I'm ready, Marlene said. Her voice didn't shake once. Callie-Ann was on the porch in 21 minutes flat, champagne bottles sweating in a bucket of ice. Marlene didn't even let her pop the cork. Bring me a buyer who wants roots, not rentals, she said. Someone who'll love her the way Tommy and I did. Cash offer, 30-day close, and I stay till after the 4th. Callie-Ann's eyes went round as the cork finally shot across the porch and pinged off the Ken roof. Mrs. McAllister, are you sure? Marlene looked out at the lake, flat and shining like a nickel. I've never been more sure of anything since the day I said I do on that very dock. Callie-Ann found them in 43 hours. Sarah and Michael Kendrick, 35 and 33, newly expecting their first baby, both teachers, both raised in apartments and dreaming of dirt under their children's bare feet. They walked the property at sunset and cried actual tears when Marlene showed them the treehouse Tommy had built in 1987, still solid as the day he drove the last nail. They offered full asking, $2.1 million. Marlene countered, 2.3 cash and the same post-4th closing. They accepted before the sun hit the water. The lawyer, Tommy's old Army buddy Harlan, rewrote the will in one afternoon. Everything went into the Tommy McAllister first-generation college scholarship and the Catawba County no-kill shelter. Her children got exactly one sentence each. You were never entitled to my memories. You forfeited them the first time you chose convenience over love. She mailed the envelopes the same day the sold sign went up. Then Marlene did the thing nobody saw coming. She bought a houseboat. Not just any houseboat. A 1972 custom blue water cruiser that had spent the last 20 years as a liveaboard in Charleston, then sat neglected after its owner passed. 400 square feet of teak and joy, 2 stories, widow's walk on top, clawfoot tub welded to the aft deck because the previous owner believed in outdoor baths and didn't care who saw. The first time Marlene stepped aboard, the realtor, a tattooed woman named Rayanne, said, "Folks call her the Blue Widow." Marlene ran her hand along the wheel and smiled for the first time in weeks. She's about to be reborn. She paid $178,000 cash and named her Second Wind. She moved in on July 3rd with 1 suitcase of clothes, Tommy's Martin guitar, her cast-iron skillet, the jelly jar she'd drunk the bourbon from, now washed and holding wildflowers, a box of photos that did not include a single child who'd ever stood her up. Everything else she gave away or left on the curb with free signs. Half of Lake Norman showed up with pickups and gratitude. July 4, 11:47 p.m. Marlene sat barefoot on the roof deck of Second Wind in a cotton nightgown, watching the fireworks reflect in a million pieces across the black water. She could see her old house, no, Sarah and Michael's house now, lit up like Christmas, 50 new family members laughing on the lawn she used to mow herself. Her phone buzzed itself off the railing and into the drink. She didn't fish it out. July 5th, 6:12 a.m. She paddled past the old dock in her sunshine yellow kayak, sassy, wearing a straw hat and a smile sharp as a fillet knife. Lauren was on the end of the pier screaming into her phone, mascara tracks down her cheeks. Travis stood behind her looking like he'd aged 10 years overnight. Jenna sat on the bench crying into a towel. They saw her at the same moment. Lauren's mouth opened and closed like a largemouth bass. Marlene lifted one hand in a slow, regal wave and kept paddling. She did not stop. She did not explain. She simply disappeared around the bend with the sunrise turning the water gold behind her. August. Word travels faster than ski boats on Lake Norman. The Facebook groups exploded. Did y'all hear Marlene McAllister sold the family compound to strangers and moved onto a houseboat? I heard she's drinking bourbon for breakfast and dating the dockmaster. I heard she left her kids $1 each, like in the movies. Marlene read none of it. She was too busy learning how to bleed the water pump, playing guitar for tips at the sandbar on Wednesday nights, and making new friends who showed up when they said they would. September. The first grandchild arrived, alone. Cole, Travis's oldest, headed to Clemson on a partial scholarship he suddenly needed more than ever. He stood on the dock, clutching a manila envelope and looking like he might throw up. Marlene served him tea on the upper deck and waited. Inside the envelope was the letter he'd written to unlock his trust at 25. He'd brought it early because he wasn't sure there'd still be a trust at 25. Marlene read it twice. It was honest, raw, and ended with, "I'm sorry I let them make you invisible." She handed him a paddle. "Take me for a ride, baby." They kayaked until the sun burned the mist off the water. When they came back, she hugged him so hard his Clemson hat fell in the lake. One by one, the others came. Some cried, some defended their parents, some just sat quiet and listened to the water slap the hull while Marlene told stories about their grandfather they'd never bothered to hear before. October. Lauren showed up unannounced on a rainy Thursday with banana pudding and desperation. They sat on the porch swing that hung from the upper deck, chains creaking, rain drumming on the tin roof. "I didn't know," Lauren whispered. "I didn't know what we were doing to you." "I know you didn't," Marlene said. "That's why I had to leave." Lauren cried until the swing stopped moving. When she was done, Marlene handed her a life jacket. "Water, Si. Let's go check the crab pots." They came back soaked and laughing like they hadn't since Lauren was 12. November through April. The cove filled with widows on boats, 5 now, all over 60, all done apologizing. They called themselves the Dock Tail Sisters and met every Friday at sunset with whatever was in the fridge. They traded recipes, tools, and stories that would peel paint. Marlene taught them all how to play wagon wheel on Tommy's guitar. They taught her how to swear in Gullah and make a proper Dark and Stormy. May. The sign went up on her dock. Second Wind Cove. Visitors welcome. Family by appointment. Bring dessert and humility. June 12, 2026. Marlene's 69th birthday. She woke to the sound of boat engines and children shouting, "Grandma!" before the coffee finished dripping. Every single grandchild was there. All 3 of her children stood on the dock, holding grocery bags and looking like sinners at revival. Lauren carried a sheet cake that read, "We showed up, Mama, for real this time." Travis carried a cooler of Conecuh sausage and a face that had finally learned shame. Jenna carried a scrapbook thick as a Bible and eyes that had stopped expecting forgiveness to be easy. Marlene stood on the deck in bare feet and Tommy's old flannel, hair white as gull wings, eyes bluer than the water. She didn't speak for a long time. Then she smiled, slow, sun-warm, and free. "Y'all come aboard," she called. "Mind the gap. Somebody fire up the grill. This gets a rising." They stayed 4 days. They slept on every horizontal surface and some that weren't. They swam until their fingers pruned. They told stories about Tommy until voices gave out and the Milky Way spilled across the sky like God had knocked over a salt shaker of stars. On the last night, Travis stood up, cleared his throat 3 times, and said, "Mama, I was wrong. I was greedy and blind, and I'm sorry doesn't cover it, but it's all I got." Marlene looked at him across the flicker of tiki torches. "I hear you, baby. Thank you." That was enough. When the last car pulled away on Monday morning, Marlene stood alone on her little deck with coffee gone cold, watching dust settle back onto the gravel road. The loons called across the water. She lifted her mug to the horizon. "We did it, Tommy," she whispered. "We finally got our special occasion." Then she turned up Alison Krauss, kicked off her flip-flops, and danced barefoot on teak warmed by the Carolina sun. 69 years old, lighter than sunrise, living on a houseboat named Second Wind with a heart wide open and finally, perfectly, entirely her own. The lake kept rocking her gently, like it had always known she belonged to it more than she ever belonged to them. And Marlene McAllister, no longer anybody's obligation, no longer anybody's afterthought, simply gloriously lived.